The old man stood in the middle of his barren field, gripping a handful of dry soil as the wind carried it away. This land had been in his family for generations. It had seen better days, days when crops thrived, when laughter echoed from the farmhouse, when it was more than just a stretch of dying earth. But now it was all he had left. The debts had swallowed everything else. He sighed, his worn boots pressing into the cracked ground. The bank had made it clear, if he couldn't pay up soon, they'd take the land. And once that happened, he'd have nothing. A deep rumble pulled him from his thoughts. A sleek black car rolled up the dusty road, completely out of place in this forgotten corner of the world. The driver stepped out first, adjusting his suit before opening the back door. And then he stepped out. A man in an expensive suit, polished shoes sinking slightly into the dirt, eyes hidden behind dark sunglasses. He took a slow, deliberate breath before removing them, revealing a gaze that seemed to weigh every inch of the land, and the man standing on it. The old farmer frowned. "You lost?" The billionaire studied him for a moment before shaking his head. "Number I came here on purpose." The old man crossed his arms. "What for?" The billionaire let a small smile tug at the corner of his lips. "To buy this land." The words hit like a punch to the gut. The farmer clenched his fists. "Not for sale." The billionaire's smile didn't fade. Instead, he took a slow step forward. "Are you sure about that?" For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The wind howled through the empty fields, carrying with it the weight of a decision that could change everything. And then, just when the farmer thought he'd heard it all, the billionaire said something that made his breath catch. "I'm not here to take your land. I'm here to save it." The old man narrowed his eyes. "Save it?" He scoffed, shaking his head. "People like you don't save anything. You take." The billionaire didn't flinch. Instead, he stepped closer, his polished shoes pressing into the dry earth. "Maybe you're right. Maybe I've spent my life taking. But this time, I want to do something different." The farmer crossed his arms. "And why should I believe that?" The billionaire exhaled, looking around. "Because I know what it's like to lose something that should have lasted forever." His voice dropped, almost as if he were speaking to himself. "And I won't let that happen again." The farmer studied him. He wasn't sure what to make of this man. This stranger in an expensive suit who spoke like he carried ghosts on his shoulders. But then the billionaire pulled something from his pocket. A folded piece of paper. He handed it over without a word. The old man hesitated before taking it, unfolding the crisp document. His hands, rough from years of labor, skimmed over the bold print. A contract. But not just any contract. His eyes widened. The billionaire wasn't trying to buy the land. He was offering him ownership of a company, a real investment, a partnership that would bring back irrigation, restore the fields, and turn this dying farm into something thriving again. It didn't make sense. The old man's voice was hoarse. "Why are you doing this?" The billionaire hesitated. Then, in a low voice, he said something that made the farmer's stomach drop. "Because this land isn't just yours." The wind howled between them, but the old man barely felt it. Because suddenly, the stranger standing before him wasn't just a billionaire. He was family. The paper trembled in the old man's hands. His chest tightened as he read the name at the bottom of the contract. It was a name he hadn't heard in years, one that had been buried in the past, along with memories he had long forced himself to forget. He slowly lifted his gaze, his weathered eyes searching the billionaire's face. And now that he was really looking, he saw it, the sharp jawline, the way his brow furrowed in quiet determination, the same piercing eyes he had once seen in someone else. His breath caught. "You're her son." The billionaire held his gaze. "I am." A wave of emotions crashed over the farmer: shock, regret, pain. He had lost his only daughter years ago in a way that still haunted him, and when she left, she had taken her son with her. A boy the farmer never got the chance to know. Until now. His grip on the contract tightened. "I thought," his voice faltered, "I thought I lost you both forever." The billionaire exhaled. "I thought so too." His voice was steady, but there was something raw beneath it. "I grew up thinking I had no family left. But when I started digging into my mother's past, I found this place." His eyes scanned the land, and for the first time there was something almost reverent in his gaze. "I found you." The old man swallowed hard, his throat thick with emotions. He had spent years grieving, believing he had nothing left. But now, standing before him, was proof that he had been wrong. But one question still lingered. "If you found me, why didn't you come sooner?" His voice was quieter now, almost hesitant. The billionaire hesitated. Then, with a deep breath, he said, "Because I didn't just want to show up. I wanted to fix what was broken." He gestured to the contract. "This isn't just about saving the land, it's about rebuilding what we lost, together." The wind howled around them, but the old man barely noticed. Because for the first time in years, he wasn't standing on this land alone. The old man's fingers tightened around the contract, but his grip wasn't on the paper. It was on the past. He had spent years believing he was the last of his bloodline, that the land, the farmhouse, the endless stretch of earth, it would all die with him. But now, here stood his grandson, a man who had carved his own path in the world, yet still found his way back to the roots he never even knew he had. His voice was hoarse. "And you think this," he lifted the contract slightly, "fixes everything?" The billionaire didn't look offended. If anything, his expression softened. "Number, I don't." His gaze drifted to the land around them. "But I think it's a start." The old man exhaled, glancing back at the farmhouse. It had seen generations before him, each one leaving its mark in the walls, the soil, the wind that whispered through the fields. Could he really let someone else carry it forward? He turned back to the billionaire. "You're a city man. You don't know what it takes to run a farm." A small smirk tugged at the younger man's lips. "Number. But I know how to listen." He took a step closer. "And I know you've spent your life fighting to keep this place alive. You don't have to fight alone anymore." Something inside the old man cracked. The weight of years spent carrying everything on his own, of believing no one would come back for what was once a proud family legacy. It all threatened to break him. His voice was rough, but quiet. "What do you really want from me, boy?" The billionaire didn't hesitate. "To learn." Silence stretched between them. The wind rustled the dry grass. A crow cawed in the distance. And for the first time in decades, the old man felt something other than loneliness. Hope. His fingers loosened on the contract. "Then you'd better be ready to get your hands dirty." The billionaire grinned. "That's exactly what I came here for." The old man sighed, shaking his head as he folded the contract and tucked it into his pocket. "This land doesn't care about money, boy," he muttered, eyeing the billionaire's spotless shoes sinking slightly into the dirt. "It cares about hands in the soil, sweat on your back, knowing when to plant and when to pray." He wiped his palms on his worn-out jeans. "You sure you're ready for that?" The billionaire smirked. "I built an empire from nothing. I think I can handle a little dirt." The old man let out a rough chuckle. "We'll see about that." The farmhouse door creaked open, and an elderly woman stepped onto the porch, wiping her hands on an apron. She froze when she saw the billionaire standing there, her eyes widening as if she were staring at a ghost. Her hand trembled as it covered her mouth. "Oh, my lord." The billionaire turned toward her, recognition flashing in his eyes. "You're his wife," the old man finished for him, "and the one who's kept me from losing my mind all these years." He glanced at her, voice softer now. "Martha, this is him." Tears welled up in the woman's eyes. She stepped forward, hesitated, then cupped the billionaire's face with both hands like she was afraid he'd disappear. "You look just like your mama," she whispered. The billionaire swallowed hard. "She used to talk about you." His voice cracked slightly. "I just never thought I'd be standing here." Martha let out a breathless laugh, wiping her eyes. "Oh, honey, neither did we." The old man cleared his throat. "Well, don't just stand there, boy. If you're serious about this, you start now." He pointed toward the barn. "There's a busted fence that needs fixing, and we don't waste daylight around here." The billionaire rolled up his sleeves. "Lead the way." As he followed the old man toward the barn, he felt something strange settle in his chest. For the first time in his life, he wasn't just chasing success, he was coming home.